May 23rd, 2025, a day that shook Washington. Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act scraped through the House by a single vote, igniting chaos and celebration in equal measure. This isn't just another bill, it's a seismic shift, promising sweeping tax cuts, border walls, and an America First economy. But beneath the bold promises, the cost is staggering. Deep Medicaid cuts and a national debt projected to hit $36 trillion. The stakes are personal. Your finances, healthcare, and community are all on the line. We'll dissect the bill's claims, expose its risks, and reveal the truth behind the headlines. What does this mean for you? For millions of Americans, the impact will be immediate and profound. This is more than political theater. It's a turning point for the nation. Get ready for a turbulent ride through the heart of America's latest legislative gamble. The story of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act begins now. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act passed by a single vote, a political cliffhanger that left Washington reeling. This isn't a minor tweak, it's a multi-trillion-dollar overhaul of America's economic and social contract. Trump's signature is on every page, aiming to cement his legacy with 3 pillars: permanent tax cuts, massive border security, and an America First economic agenda. The bill's ambition is matched only by its risks. Who wins, who loses, and what does it mean for the country's future? We'll break down the winners and losers and the real cost of this legislative gamble. Is this a masterstroke or a reckless leap? The nation's destiny hangs in the balance. Let's dive into the heart of Trump's boldest move. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act makes the 2017 tax cuts permanent, a move that will shape the economy for decades. For the average family, that's about $1,700 more in their pockets each year. 9 weeks of groceries, according to the House Ways and Means Committee. Supporters call it a victory for working Americans, a promise kept. The bill aims to deliver stability, letting families and businesses plan with confidence. But locking in these cuts is a monumental fiscal decision with long-term consequences. The rhetoric is powerful: more money for families, less government interference. Yet the scale of this move hints at dramatic trade-offs ahead. Is this the path to prosperity or a setup for future hardship? The debate is just beginning. The ink is dry, but the story is far from over. The true impact of these permanent cuts will soon be felt nationwide. The bill introduces bold new tax breaks, tax-free tips for service workers, tax-free overtime from 2026 to 2028, and a boosted child tax credit to $2,500 per child. There's also a new deduction for interest on car loans for American-made vehicles, blending family support with economic nationalism. These measures target working families, parents, and patriotic consumers, promising more take-home pay and incentives to buy American. Supporters say these changes will energize the economy and reward hard work. The bill's architects have crafted a narrative of opportunity and reward. But who really benefits? And what are the hidden costs? The allure is strong, but the full picture is complex. These new breaks are headline-grabbing, but their long-term effects remain uncertain. The promise: a more dynamic, prosperous America. The reality, still up for debate. Seniors get a $4,000 boost to their standard deduction, aiming to ease retirement costs. Small businesses see a 23% deduction for qualified income, with claims of 1 million new jobs annually. The White House projects a 5.2% GDP surge and $11,600 average wage increases. Supporters hail the bill as a game-changer for workers, retirees, and entrepreneurs. The vision: thriving towns, secure seniors, and an economy firing on all cylinders. The rhetoric is soaring, the numbers bold. But is this prosperity real, or just political theater? As the confetti settles, doubts linger. Can these promises withstand economic reality? The stakes have never been higher. Every promise comes with a price. To fund these tax cuts, the bill slashes nearly $1 trillion from safety net programs over 10 years. Medicaid and SNAP lifelines for millions face deep cuts. For many, this isn't fiscal responsibility, it's a devastating blow. The bill's architects call it necessary medicine, but critics see a cruel transfer of wealth. The most vulnerable are asked to pay for prosperity promised to others. The debate is fierce. Is this tough love or a betrayal of America's social contract? The human cost is real lost healthcare, empty tables, uncertain futures. The dream of prosperity for some is built on sacrifice for others. As the details emerge, outrage grows. The true cost of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is only beginning to surface. The scalpel cuts deep into Medicaid. A staggering $700 billion is to be sliced away over the next decade. This isn't just a trim, it's a gaping wound inflicted upon a program that serves as the cornerstone of healthcare for tens of millions. The sick, the elderly, children and people with disabilities rely on Medicaid. For them, this isn't a political football, it's a matter of life and death. The sheer magnitude of this reduction sends shivers down the spines of healthcare advocates and recipients alike. The Big Beautiful Bill suddenly looks menacing, its beauty skin deep. But the cuts don't stop at the dollar amount. New, stringent work requirements are being imposed. Starting in December 2026, able-bodied adults without dependents will need to prove 80 hours of work per month. 80 hours, or lose their coverage. This mandate, proponents argue, promotes self-sufficiency. Critics, however, see it as a punitive measure, one that ignores the complexities of poverty, the gig economy, and the challenges faced by those with episodic illnesses or caregiving responsibilities. The administrative hurdles alone could disenfranchise countless individuals, pushing them into the ranks of the uninsured. The warnings are stark. The Urban Institute, a respected non-partisan research organisation, paints a grim picture. Their analysis, highlighted by the New Republic, projects that a shocking 8.6 million people could lose their health insurance by 2034 as a direct result of these changes. 8.6 million. Each number represents a human being facing a future without access to necessary medical care. The potential for suffering is immense. Preventable illnesses could go untreated, chronic conditions could worsen, lives could be tragically cut short. This is the potential human toll of the Big Beautiful Bill. Democrats are sounding the alarm, with House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries branding it a big ugly bill. He and his colleagues have taken to the House floor, reading heartfelt, desperate letters from ordinary Americans. People terrified of losing their healthcare, people wondering how they will afford life-saving medications. As the Globe and Mail reported, these personal stories offer a raw, emotional counter-narrative to the bill's triumphant rhetoric. Ex-posts, like one from @rep_Stansbury, decry the broader impacts, highlighting what they see as $1.5 to $2 trillion in cuts, not just to Medicaid, but also to vital housing assistance programs. The battle lines are drawn. The assault on the safety net continues with devastating cuts to SNAP food stamps, a program that stands between millions of American families, and hunger faces a reduction of $267 billion. This is, honestly, a colossal sum ripped from the budget that helps parents feed their children, seniors afford groceries, and struggling individuals maintain basic nutrition. The justifications are familiar: promoting work, reducing dependency. But the reality for many is that SNAP is a temporary lifeline, a crucial support during hard times, not a lifestyle choice. These cuts threaten to deepen food insecurity across the nation. The mechanisms for these reductions are multifaceted and severe. Eligibility criteria are being tightened, making it harder for those in need to qualify. PBS reports indicate that the bill also shifts a greater financial burden onto individual states, forcing them to cover costs previously handled at the federal level. This could create a patchwork of support where access to food assistance depends more on your zip code than your need. States already facing budget constraints may have no choice but to further restrict benefits or reduce outreach, leaving more families to fall through the cracks. The beautiful bill could mean empty cupboards for many. The projections are, once again, alarming. The Urban Institute, as cited by the New Republic, warns that these changes could strip SNAP benefits from 5.4 million people. 5.4 million individuals, including children and the elderly, potentially facing increased hunger. This isn't just a statistic, it's a potential public health crisis in the making. Malnutrition affects cognitive development in children, weakens immune systems, and exacerbates chronic illnesses. The long-term consequences of such widespread food insecurity could be honestly catastrophic, far outweighing any short-term fiscal savings. The cost to human potential is immeasurable. Critics are unsparing in their assessment. They see these cuts as a blatant giveaway to the wealthy financed on the backs of the poor. The Guardian highlights analysis suggesting the top 10% of earners will see their resources increase by 4% under the bill. In stark contrast, the bottom 10% are projected to lose 4% of their resources. This paints a picture of a reverse Robin Hood taking from the needy to give to the affluent is Trump's vision for America. One where millions are left behind struggling for their next meal while the wealthiest reap the rewards. The safety net is fraying and the hunger pains are beginning. The big beautiful bill doesn't just whisper about border security. It screams it from the legislative mountaintops. This is Trump doubling down, tripling down on one of his most iconic and divisive promises. A colossal $123.5 billion is being injected directly into fortifying America's frontiers. This isn't chump change, it's a war chest, earmarked for dramatic escalation in border enforcement. The message is unambiguous. The drawbridge is being pulled up, the walls are going higher, and the gatekeepers are being heavily armed. This financial firepower, as reported by NPR, signals a new era of intensified vigilance, a commitment to a hardline stance that energizes his base like little else. The southern border is set to become a landscape transformed, a potent symbol of unyielding resolve. This vast sum is not just for fresh paint on existing fences. Oh no. We're talking about serious construction, the kind that makes headlines and dominates news cycles. The infamous border wall is slated for significant expansion and reinforcement. Beyond physical barriers, funds will pour into aggressive deportation operations, promising swifter, more decisive removal of those deemed unlawfully present. ICE detention facilities are set for overhaul and expansion, preparing for an anticipated surge in capacity. It's a multi-pronged strategy aimed at creating an almost impenetrable barrier, both physically and bureaucratically. A clear signal that old rules no longer apply with the same leniency. But concrete and steel are only part of the equation. The bill calls for a massive surge in human resources, a veritable army of new enforcers. An additional 10,000 Border Patrol agents are to be recruited, trained and deployed by 2029. Imagine the scale of that mobilization. Thousands of new boots on the ground, equipped with advanced technology and a clear mandate. This isn't just about increasing numbers, it's about projecting an overwhelming presence, a constant state of high alert along every mile of the border. The goal is clear: to deter, to detect and to detain with unprecedented efficiency, leaving little room for unauthorized crossings. This surge isn't merely a policy decision, it's a profound statement of intent, a cornerstone of the America First philosophy. Supporters hail it as long overdue commitment to national sovereignty and the rule of law, a necessary step to regain control of the nation's borders. They see it as fulfilling a solemn promise to protect American communities and jobs. Critics, however, view it as exorbitantly expensive, performative act of cruelty, one that demonizes immigrants and militarizes border communities without addressing root causes of migration. The iron frontier is being forged, but its true cost remains fiercely debated. The big beautiful bill doesn't stop at physical barriers and increased patrols. It erects formidable financial walls as well, directly targeting those seeking refuge or a new life in America. A slew of new fees and taxes are being levied on immigrants, creating fresh hurdles that many will find honestly insurmountable. This isn't just about cost recovery, it's a deliberate strategy designed to make the process of immigration more expensive and, for some, entirely out of reach. The Ways and Means Committee documents lay out these new financial obligations in stark detail, revealing a clear intent to shift significant costs onto the very individuals navigating the complex immigration system. This approach fundamentally alters the landscape for those seeking entry. Consider the new reality for asylum seekers. Under this bill, individuals fleeing persecution and violence will now face a daunting $1,000 application fee simply to have their case heard. This is a dramatic departure from previous norms, potentially slamming the door on the most vulnerable who arrive with nothing but the clothes on their backs. For someone escaping life-threatening danger, finding such a sum could be an impossible task. Human rights organizations are already sounding the alarm, arguing that placing a price tag on safety violates international conventions and America's own humanitarian ideals. This fee transforms asylum from a right to be sought into a service to be purchased, a chilling precedent. The financial demands extend even to those trying to protect children. Sponsoring an unaccompanied child, often a relative stepping in to care for a minor who has arrived alone, will now come with a hefty $3,500 fee. This places an extraordinary burden on families, many of whom are already of modest means, struggling to provide for children who have endured immense trauma. Furthermore, the bill introduces new taxes on remittances, the money immigrants send back to support their families in their home countries. This measure effectively skims from the earnings of hard-working individuals, impacting not only their financial stability in the United States, but also the fragile economies of their nations of origin. Proponents of these measures argue that they are necessary for a system that is financially self-sustaining and that they may even act as a deterrent to what they term frivolous claims or chain migration. They contend that immigrants should bear more of the costs associated with processing their applications and their presence in the country. However, opponents see these fees as punitive and discriminatory, designed to weed out and deter primarily poorer immigrants, regardless of the merits of their claims or their potential contributions to American society. The price of entry is rising, and with it, concerns about fairness and compassion in America's immigration policies are escalating dramatically. Just when you thought the big beautiful bill had exhausted its capacity for shock, it throws a curveball at the burgeoning green economy. In a move that has stunned environmental advocates and electric vehicle enthusiasts, new federal taxes are being slapped on electric and hybrid vehicles. This isn't a subtle shift. It's a direct financial disincentive for choosing cleaner transportation. EV owners will be hit with a $250 annual federal tax. Hybrid drivers face a $150 yearly levy. These figures rise with inflation, ensuring their impact grows over time. The stated rationale for this new tax, as reported by Just the News, is to ensure that EV and hybrid drivers contribute their fair share to federal highway funding, since they typically pay less in gasoline taxes. This revenue, proponents claim, is crucial for maintaining and upgrading America's aging infrastructure. However, this new tax comes with a devastating corollary. It simultaneously eliminates the popular $7,500 federal tax credit for purchasing new electric vehicles. This credit has been a key driver of EV adoption, making these often pricier vehicles more accessible to mainstream consumers. Killing it off while imposing new taxes sends a chilling message to the EV industry and potential buyers. The backlash has been swift and honestly pretty severe. Democratic Representative Seth Magaziner, quoted by Just the News, slammed the move as a significant blow to clean energy progress and America's efforts to combat climate change. He argues that at a time when the nation should be accelerating the transition to sustainable transportation, this bill actively discourages it. Yet, on the other side of the aisle, and among certain online commentators like ex-user at Can't Cancel Mimi, there's a sense of vindication. This user, and others like them, mock the outrage from environmentalists, praising the bill's unapologetically pro-America stance, which they interpret as prioritizing traditional industries and fiscal accountability over green initiatives. This entire maneuver, targeting green subsidies while imposing new burdens on EV owners, is not happening in a vacuum. Whispers in Washington and some investigative reports suggest the deep influence of figures like Elon Musk, whose Doge cuts philosophy, interpreted here as slashing Department of Green Energy type subsidies, has found fertile ground. The bill demonstrably slashes support for renewable energy projects, while subtly and sometimes overtly boosting the prospects of fossil fuels. Is this a strategic play for energy dominance based on traditional resources, as supporters claim? Or is it a dangerous retrograde step, mortgaging the planet's future for short-term political and economic gains? The green gamble has begun. The passage of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act was not a legislative stroll in the park. It was a brutal bare-knuckle brawl that went down to the wire. Imagine the scene: the House chamber crackling with tension, the digital vote tally, frozen hearts pounding across the nation. The final count, 215 to 214, a single vote. One solitary voice tipped the scales, pushing this monumental legislation over the finish line. This victory was carved out of sheer political will, relentless pressure and perhaps a touch of luck, leaving the chamber echoing with gasps and furious whispers. House Speaker Mike Johnson emerged from the crucible looking like a man who had wrestled with phantoms all night. The all-night talks were legendary. A marathon of arm-twisting, horse trading and veiled threats, Johnson, tasked with unifying a fractious Republican caucus, deployed every tool. He pleaded, he cajoled, he reminded his colleagues of the stakes. The pressure was immense, not just from the Capitol, but from Mar-a-Lago itself. The air was thick with rumours, with tales of fraught phone calls and last-minute deals. Sleep was a luxury no one could afford. Adding to the chaos, the spectre of Donald Trump loomed large. Reports from Fox News detailed how the former president personally intervened, threatening primary challenges against conservative holdouts. Representatives Thomas Massie and Warren Davidson, fiscal hawks, deeply troubled, found themselves in the crosshairs. Their principled stands were met with the full force of Trump's political machine. This was not a debate among equals, it was a test of loyalty with careers hanging in the balance. And then there was the human element. 2 Republican members missed the crucial vote, sending tremors of panic. One was reportedly ill. The other, one lawmaker had simply fallen asleep. In a vote decided by such a razor-thin margin, every single absence became a potential point of catastrophic failure. The passage was a miracle or a calamity, depending on your perspective. The ink was barely dry on the big, beautiful bill when the economic storm clouds gathered, dark and ominous. The Congressional Budget Office, Washington's non-partisan fiscal watchdog, dropped a bombshell report that sent shockwaves through financial markets. Their cold, hard analysis projected a truly staggering deficit spike. An additional $2.3 trillion to $3.8 trillion piled onto the national debt over the next 10 years. These weren't just abstract numbers. They represented a terrifying escalation of America's debt crisis, a potential swamping of the nation's fiscal future. The beautiful promises suddenly came with an astronomically ugly price tag. The CBO's grim forecast didn't stop there. Buried within the projections was a particularly chilling detail, highlighted by CNN. The massive deficit increase could trigger automatic across-the-board spending cuts. Among the programs potentially on the chopping block, Medicare, an estimated $500 billion could be slashed from the vital healthcare program for seniors, a devastating consequence of the bill's unfunded tax cuts. This wasn't a deliberate policy choice outlined in the bill, but a ticking time bomb, a byproduct of fiscal irresponsibility. The very people the bill purported to help could soon find their essential services at grave risk, a cruel irony not lost on critics. The international financial community reacted with predictable alarm. Moody's, one of the world's leading credit rating agencies, swiftly downgraded the US credit rating. This was a stark vote of no confidence, a signal to global investors that America's ability to manage its finances was now in serious doubt. As reported by the BBC, the fallout was immediate. US bond yields surged, hitting a 20-year high. This meant the cost of borrowing for the US government, and ultimately for taxpayers, skyrocketed, creating a vicious cycle of ever-increasing debt and interest payments. The economic tremors were being felt worldwide. The air in Washington grew thick with fear and uncertainty. Economists warned of inflation, of a weakened dollar, of a potential recession triggered by unsustainable fiscal policies. The big, beautiful bill, sold as a catalyst for an economic boom, was now being viewed by many as a reckless gamble with the nation's financial stability. The promised prosperity seemed to be built on a foundation of quicksand, threatening to pull the entire economy down into a morass of debt and despair. The political victory in the House felt increasingly hollow as the true economic consequences began to surface with terrifying clarity. The big, beautiful bill, having narrowly survived the House inferno, now faced its next great trial, the United States Senate. If the House passage was a political knife fight, the Senate promised a full-blown war of attrition. Here, the margins were even slimmer, the egos larger, and the procedural hurdles more daunting. The carefully crafted compromises that barely held in the lower chamber were already beginning to fray, signalling a brutal and protracted legislative battle ahead. The bill's journey was far from over. Its most perilous chapter was just beginning, threatening to tear apart an already polarized chamber. Republican senators, while nominally aligned with the White House's ambitions, were not a monolithic bloc. Figures like Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, a populist conservative with a keen eye on his base, immediately signaled their discontent. Politico reported that Hawley and others were vowing to force significant changes, particularly targeting the deep cuts to Medicaid. They understood the political toxicity of slashing healthcare for vulnerable populations and were determined to reshape that aspect of the bill. These internal GOP divisions threatened to derail the entire enterprise, creating a multi-front war for Trump and his allies. The beautiful vision was meeting senatorial reality. On the other side of the aisle, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer minced no words. Taking to X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, he vehemently denounced the legislation, echoing House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries by branding it an ugly bill. Schumer and the Democrats prepared for total opposition, ready to deploy every available tactic to block or significantly alter what they saw as a disastrous piece of legislation. They painted it as a giveaway to the wealthy at the expense of working families, a betrayal of American values. The battle lines were clearly drawn, promising a summer of fierce partisan combat. Adding another layer of complexity was the renewed fight over the state and local tax, or SALT deduction cap. The House bill had raised the cap to $40,000, a compromise designed to appease Republicans in high-tax blue states. However, this olive branch infuriated fiscal hardliners like Representative Andy Harris, whose sentiment was shared by some Senate conservatives who, according to ABC News, viewed even this modest increase as a deal-breaker. This internal Republican strife over tax policy further complicated the bill's prospects, demonstrating that even within the GOP, consensus was fragile. Trump's dream bill was entering the Senate facing a perfect storm of opposition and internal revolt. Its survival was anything but certain. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act has crashed through the bedrock of American politics. It is not merely legislation, it is a seismic event. A monumental gamble has been taken. The very soul of the nation feels like it is hanging precariously in the balance. Reverberations of its passage continue to shake every corner of society. This bill, born of fierce conviction and brutal political maneuvering, has cleaved the country further. The chasm between its supporters and detractors yawns wider than ever before. America stands at a precipice, peering into an unknown future, sculpted by this audacious act. The air crackles with tension. At its heart, this drama pits dazzling promises against terrifying costs. On one side, the allure of sweeping tax cuts shimmers. The dream of renewed American prosperity beckons powerfully. Supporters envision an economic renaissance, a vibrant nation unleashed. Yet on the other side, a chilling reality takes form. The nation's crucial safety nets are being shredded. The national debt spirals towards an abyss, threatening to engulf future generations. This stark dichotomy defines the bill, a beautiful vision for some, an ugly, looming catastrophe for many others. The contrast could not be more extreme. Beyond the grand economic theories and political theatre, real lives are caught in this legislative tempest. This is not an abstract debate confined to Washington's marbled halls. It is about families wondering if they will keep their health care. It is about children who might go hungry. It is about seniors facing an uncertain future. The American dream itself, for many, feels under direct assault. The human cost, often obscured by complex jargon and partisan shouting, is the true measure of this bill's impact. These are the silent screams beneath the headlines. The passage of Trump's bill has undeniably flung open Pandora's box. Its myriad consequences, both intended and unforeseen, are now beginning to spill forth. A profound sense of uncertainty permeates the national consciousness. Will it usher in an era of unprecedented growth as its architects proclaim? Or will it unleash forces of economic instability and social fragmentation that could irrevocably damage the nation? America holds its breath. The path forward is shrouded in mist, each step fraught with peril and possibility. The dice have been rolled. The big beautiful bill, having narrowly, almost miraculously escaped the House of Representatives, now stumbles into an even more treacherous arena. The United States Senate awaits. This chamber, steeped in its own arcane traditions and volatile personalities, will serve as the ultimate crucible. If the House vote was a chaotic skirmish decided by a single shot, the Senate promises a prolonged, brutal siege. Here, the margins for error are non-existent. The political stakes are amplified to an almost unbearable degree. Every alliance is fragile, every vote a potential earthquake. The bill's survival is far from guaranteed. Within the Republican ranks themselves, deep fissures are already apparent, threatening to shatter any semblance of party unity. Senators like Josh Hawley, ever attuned to the populist currents, have voiced serious reservations. They are not simply rubber stamps for the White House's agenda. The proposed cuts to Medicaid in particular have become a lightning rod. These senators understand the devastating impact such reductions could have on their constituents. They are demanding changes, significant alterations that could unravel the delicate compromises woven into the bill. Trump's vision faces a rebellion from within his own ranks. Meanwhile, the Democratic opposition, led by the unyielding Chuck Schumer, is preparing for total war. They see this bill not as a flawed policy, but as an existential threat to American values. Schumer's denunciation of it as an ugly bill encapsulates their profound disgust and alarm. Democrats are mobilizing every procedural weapon in their arsenal. They aim to obstruct, to amend, to expose what they view as the moral bankruptcy at the core of this legislation. Their goal is not just to defeat the bill, but to ensure the American people understand the dire consequences it holds for working families and the vulnerable. The impending Senate vote is therefore far more than a legislative formality. It is a moment of profound national reckoning. Within those hallowed halls, the fate of millions will be debated and decided. The direction of the country for years, perhaps decades to come, hangs precariously in the balance. Will the Senate act as a cooling saucer, tempering the bill's most extreme elements? Or will it succumb to the partisan pressures, pushing America further down this controversial path? The judgment of the Senate will echo through history. The nation watches, waits, and worries. The ultimate question screams for an answer. What will this big, beautiful bill truly bequeath to America? Will its audacious tax cuts ignite the roaring economic resurgence that Donald Trump and his allies so confidently predict? Will jobs multiply, wages soar, and factories hum with renewed vigor across the land? Or will the colossal weight of a $36 trillion deficit, exacerbated by these very cuts, crush any nascent prosperity, dragging the nation into a fiscal quagmire from which there is no easy escape? This is the fundamental economic gamble, a high-stakes wager with America's future as the prize. The beautiful dream contends with a terrifying debt. And what of the human fabric of the nation, the social contract that binds Americans together? Will the deep, painful slashes to Medicaid and SNAP truly foster a more self-reliant and resilient populace as proponents claim? Or will these cuts merely cast millions adrift, stripping away essential lifelines and condemning them to a future of sickness, hunger, and despair? Will American communities become stronger when their most vulnerable members are pushed further to the margins? The bill forces a brutal interrogation of national priorities, weighing fiscal arithmetic against human compassion. The soul of the safety net is on the line. The bill's vision for border security and its new tax paradigms also raise profound, unsettling questions. Will the fortified wall and the army of new agents genuinely secure the nation? Or will they simply escalate tensions and humanitarian crises? Are the newly imposed fees on asylum seekers and the taxes on remittances fair contributions to the system? Or are they punitive measures designed to deter and to punish? And will the new taxes on electric vehicles coupled with the demise of green credits truly serve America's long-term energy interests? Or will they stifle innovation and set back the urgent fight against climate change? These policies create new winners and new embittered losers. Donald Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act is, without a doubt, rewriting America's story chapter by contentious chapter. But the ending remains terrifyingly unwritten. Is this the blueprint for an American triumph, a bold stroke of genius that will restore the nation to unparalleled greatness? Or is it a ticking time bomb, its countdown already initiated, promising an explosion of economic chaos and social division? The debate rages, the stakes could not be higher, and the future is a terrifying blank page. The story unfolds now, and you, the viewer, the citizen, are living within its dramatic, uncertain narrative. The final act is yet to come.